Hello everyone, it's Tom the taxi driver, and in today's video we're going to see what's inside my cab. Awfully wet out here, let's get inside. Now for those of you that are new to this channel, I am a working London black cab driver, and what I'm going to reveal to you in this video is exactly what I keep in my cab that enables me to operate and do my job within London. So first up, looking at like the immediate cockpit area that we can see here, the most important thing I have is my mobile phone neatly mounted here. As you can see, I've got a power cord that neatly runs through. I've tucked all that out of the way. Just means I haven't got any trailing wires anywhere. This allows me, of course, to communicate with other drivers. I get Twitter notifications of road updates, traffic updates, accidents that might have happened that then directly affects my work within central London. A lot of those come from other cab drivers as well, so we all have our own means of communicating with each other. In terms of the actual mount as well, just to be speedy and convenient, it's actually just a magnetic mount. So underneath my phone case, I have a metal patch, which then of course just allows it to magnetize like that. Ever so easy. Whenever I get in and out of the cab, I can just magnetize that on there. If I'm sitting on a rain car, if I'm down at the airport, I can then turn it on landscape if I'm watching a film or something like that. If you are interested in any of the items that I mentioned within this video, all of the product links are available in the description down below. And it is also worth noting that in this cab there's not a huge deal of space, so that's why I'm quite selective about what I keep in the cab. The older classic sort of style taxis, the TX4s that you might see on the streets, do feel a little bit more spacious inside in some regards. With the modern vehicle, this lovely TXE, there is just kind of a lot of unnecessary trim. So whilst it looks like there could be more storage space, there really isn't that much more, if any more at all. One of the main parts is this center partition here. It is a keyless ignition, so as long as you've got the key on you, it could be placed there, it could be in a pocket, the cab will start, so that is kind of cool, and that just I suppose tells you can leave the key there. But really all it's good for is a pen or maybe some sunglasses, that sort of thing. So that's generally where I keep my pen, as you can see, that little lowly pen. But in here is is like the center console bit, and there's a bit more space in here. I do keep a lip balm, headphones in there. This is largely for phone calls, by the way. You can have phone calls come through the audio. That's kind of cool when I'm on the way into work or on the way home, but sometimes if I've got a passenger in the back and I've got to quickly make a phone call with someone, these are just much easier, just because you've got the microphone there, so you can get quite close to it, so the person on the other end of the phone can actually hear what you're saying, but also your conversation isn't being broadcast out loud on the speakers here. Now I did have those wonderful Apple AirPod headphones, and they were great. You just literally pull them out of the case and put them in your ears as soon as someone phones. But I think on the first generation of Apple AirPods, the Bluetooth had a bit of a lag in the connectivity, so there'd be a bit of a lag by the time you put the pods in your ears, and then the other person on the end of the phone just saying hello, 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 and then it eventually would connect. So you can't go wrong with a wire. So and it's only got to go from here to there, so it doesn't get tangled up. Mask goes without saying, and this is where your power comes from in the cab as well. You've got one cigarette lighter in here, an auxiliary input for the stereo system, and a couple of USB ports as well. I then power my larger cigarette lighter off it. So this is my multi-adapter cigarette lighter here. I only use these predominantly for my stove that I'll show you in a moment, and of course these USBs are for when I have all the different cameras hardwired in there. So I put one of the GoPros over there, I have another one mounted here, and sometimes I will have my audio recording in here as well, so those USBs are essential to have multiples of those. And you have the wonderful cup holder, of course. Always like to bring a coffee to work with me. When I got the cab, actually, it came with the most awful cup holder. It just mounts this rail here, but it was like this really weird shape that you couldn't really get any notable size cup in there. And technically they should always come with this particular one here, but mine didn't come with it, and I'd end up paying extra for that one. So that's my little jab at LEVC if you're watching this. Business cards, my receipt pads, and this is just a connection card for when you go charge on a polar station. The other bulky bit is this CMT machine here. I really hate how bulky it is, but it's the card system that I use in the cab. And basically every driver who uses a CMT system has a login to it. It's quite handy because if ever you have a replacement cab, a backup cab, or if you rent a cab, you simply log into that system and then you can take car payments as normal because all your bank details are associated with that login. I rarely ever use the printer on here. What I've actually done is taken the receipt roll out. The trouble is, whenever you have someone use card in the back, it always prints a receipt. And hardly anyone wants a receipt. You sometimes do get people in the city and stuff who want a receipt, but most of the time, if someone's paying by contactless, they just tap the card and they just run. It was kind of annoying having all this paper feeding out, and there's not actually a way of turning it off on the printer, so I just removed the paper. And you only get people probably, I don't know, maybe a couple of times a year who actually want a physically printed receipt, in which case I just chuck a roll back in and print it out for them. But most of the time, even if it's paid on card, they just want a handwritten receipt. This is what most accounts departments are absolutely fine with doing. You'll see over there as well, I have my lovely 1 litre bottle. Much like when I was on the knowledge, I find if I'm not properly hydrated, when someone gives you a road sometimes and your brain just isn't there, I just find if I'm properly hydrated, I just generally am much better, more smoother, less stressed at my job. So if we look in the door pockets of the cab, now these are only quite slim door pockets. So again, you can only get a few things in here. I keep anti-bac hand gel, of course, a paintbrush. This is actually quite good for getting, you know, little dust and pieces off of different bits in the cab. I'm a little bit OCD like that. If you watch my last What's in My Cab, and in my TX4, I had a little thin keyboard. This is a Logitech, I can't remember what it's called. It's a Logitech Keys to Go. It's called Keys to Go, it's not on the back. This is wonderful though. I actually, when I was writing my book is actually available in the description down below. Cha-ching. This is just really handy to have a decent keyboard here, so you're not actually kind of typing away on a phone. If you need to reply to any emails, stuff like that, it's always handy. Well, I always like having this keyboard. It's just really, really good. Just has to do writing on the go, and it's ever so thin. It just doesn't take up any space in the cab at all. A dry wipe marker. Dry wipe marker will be coming obvious in a moment, because in my overhead pocket I have a signboard. So someone's want to do pre-book jobs, that's what you use the dry wipe pen for. It's just a signboard that you can put in the window, on the dashboard, so that the person coming out of the office or wherever you're picking someone up from can see exactly who you are. I have a book. I always have a book on the go. This one is Life Leverage by Rob Moore. I generally read a lot of self-help, business biographies, that kind of thing. I'm not really much of a fiction reader. I don't really have the imagination for that. Other thing I keep up here is a couple of sets of glasses. Now you might have seen when I've done late night driving, I wear these nighttime glasses. These are blue light blocking glasses. They actually have a yellowish tint to them. They really take off the edge when you're driving at night and you have a lot of white LED headlights. And in fact, on a day like today, actually makes it look a bit more cheerful outside. So I can highly recommend those. And then in these ones, I just have my favourite Polaroid glasses. I recommend Polaroid highly because they are a polarized lens for real money. So these are, I think they're about £45 or so. You can get them on the Polaroid store. Whereas if you got like a set of, I don't know, Oakley's, Ray-Bans, to get a polarized lens, you're talking about £120 upwards. So these are, you know, you can buy like 3 pairs of these for the price of that. And that just takes, again, a lot of glare off of the sun, reflecting off buildings and stuff like that. You know, it's the one I sort of think, they're the sort of things that you always put on when you drive out to Heathrow, because when you drive out to Heathrow, of course, you're heading west. I generally work more into the afternoon, evenings. So of course, sun rises in the east, sets in the west. So I know that when I get a job out to Heathrow, I'll generally be wearing these glasses. Or I suppose if you're going from the city over to the West End, you know that you're going to be wearing those glasses then, and maybe not so much heading the other way. Even though the other side of the cab is very much laid out as though a passenger seat is there, you know, London black cab, they actually don't have a passenger seat there. It's just an empty, vacant luggage space. This is really an old school design. This goes back to the really old fairway taxis and some of the taxis before that. And that was kind of like it was like an exposed open part of the cab. The person getting in would just literally chuck their luggage on the front there and they'd then hop in the back. Now the other thing that I sometimes put in the cab is my portable stove. One of the hardest things about being a cab driver is that if I don't bring lunch with me, yes, I got a whole plethora of options of where to go and eat in London, but they can either be very unhealthy or very expensive. And I like to be able to control my meals, know exactly what I'm eating, and I know that in the long run I'm not going to be putting on weight or whatever. I make my own meals. I buy the foil containers, much like you get from a takeaway, put my own meals inside of them. The stove takes about 60 minutes or so to fully heat up, but man, that comes out piping hot. It's fantastic. So I just literally turn it on. I'll do a few fares with people whilst it's running, so it takes about 60 minutes, so I'll be driving around, and then by the time it's done, I pull over or join a rank and then just eat my dinner there and then. I've got little micro cutlery for it as well. But it's great because as long as it fits within that foil container, you can eat just about anything. I've had leftover pizza, leftover chicken in there. I cook my own chicken and rice, a bit of vegetables in there. I put roast dinners within the foil containers. It's absolutely amazing. Like I say, if it fits within that container, you can do just about anything. Oh, and of course, one thing I nearly forgot, my cab bag. A lot of cab drivers, in fact most cab drivers, will have some kind of cab bag. It's just like one of those sort of traditional things that you always see cab drivers with, and I suppose it kind of is an image thing. Don't need one of these necessarily. Next time you see a London cab driver, maybe at a petrol station or as they pull out to go to a restaurant, next time you see a London cab driver when they go to a petrol station, or maybe when they pull over and then go to a restaurant, they'll generally take this cab bag with them. And the reason being is that that's where we keep our earnings, where we keep our money, our float. Generally, of course, these days it's not as tantamount to, say, theft as it once was, because of course everything in the cab now is generally on card or people pay by apps. So there's not a great deal of cash in, you know, to steal off a cab driver really. I'm not going to tell you where I put it, just for that exact reason. But the other great thing about this cab bags, it kind of keeps my belongings in one place, so that when I'm done for the shift for my day, I put my my badge in the cab bag when I keep it at home, so it keeps all my belongings all together. Within a cab bag you have a few other things as well. I've got like one of these little handy coin dispensers. You don't need one of these, but I just find it's just much quicker and more efficient to give people their change. The other thing you'll generally have in a cab bag, I keep a pen in there, just I suppose as a spare one. I've got a note from TfL. This is basically an exemption of my cab, because the plate on the back ran out during the lockdown when there was no MOT centres or whatever open. So this is an exemption from TfL that I'm instructed to carry with me at all times. And the other thing as well is your bill. So when we talk about London cab drivers having a badge, they have a badge and bill. And the bill historically is actually called a bill because it's your bill of health. Or in our case, it's basically a license to say that you're a London cab driver. Right, let's have a little look in the boot. Okay, so as you can see, I do have quite a lot crammed in here. It's not really that much space, to be fair. The most glaringly obvious one is the spare tyre. So I've heard of some drivers that actually take this spare tyre out and they replace it with a can of Flatmate. I've not really been that risky. I have had a puncture a couple of times in this cab, so I've had to take this out and put that on, and I would much rather put a spare on. And this isn't even a space saver, this is exactly the same size as all the other wheels on this cab. I have a stiff brush. This is fantastic because I've got carpet in the back of my cab. This is actually awesome for getting rid of all the fluff and lint kind of on the floor when people get in and out of the cab. In this bag here is actually some microfiber cloths. I have lots and lots of microfiber cloths for cleaning out the cab. This bag here actually has a spare charging cable. This is actually a home charging cable, so I don't really carry this in the cab a lot. Might start leaving it at home actually. This is for actually charging off of a 240 volt power source or 230 volt power source, so it's got a normal household UK 3-pin plug on it. That's for free. Emergency jump starter pack, the main battery, which of course powers or drives the wheels, but you still have a regular 12 volt battery which actually turns on the cab itself. Of course, if that goes flat, then you need one of these. Probably not best left in the boot because I do need to be able to get to it. Of course, if the cab goes flat, I can't actually open the boot, so I'm going to change that now. An umbrella, obvious reasons. This one, I had a passenger leave this in the cab. I dropped them at the Westbury Hotel on Conduit Street. yeah, it wasn't the people I dropped off there, but yeah, the concierge goes, oh, that's a nice umbrella, so good one to keep. Big old box of cleaning stuff. So this was the right size, exactly the right size I could find. That is part of the chocks and the jack to jack up the cab. 17mm breaker bar. If you own one of these cabs, get one of these. It's one of the first things you need to get. I think even the guy who sold me this cab down at LEVC said to get one of these. Reason being is that they're really quite shallow nuts on these wheel nuts, and the bar that you get, not only is it quite short, it's not got enough of a head on it to actually grip it. So this has got a decent sized head and of course decent amount of leverage, and also do yourself a favour, take the wheels off and copper grease the nuts, because when you do get a puncture you'll thank yourself that you've already done that and haven't seized on. One of the other things I keep in here, I don't use it often, is a bottle. Now you can guess what this bottle is of course for. I'm going to put that back in there. Sometimes it's not always accessible to be able to go to the public toilets. You look at what happened during COVID, and of course none of the hotels or pubs, restaurants, things like that are open. And if you're out here doing long hours, let's say you get a really long job out somewhere, sometimes you do need it, and it's obviously a bit more nicer and attractive rather than going in the hedge outside someone's house. And that's it, that's everything in my cab. I just kind of keep the essentials really. Even this, it feels like a bit like too much sometimes. I sometimes bring a bag if ever I bring anything else in, maybe some extra bottles of water, maybe some extra snacks if I'm, you know, staying out a little bit later or have an extra dinner or something like that. But not like some cab drivers where you just see like all bills and documents and paperwork all lined across the dashboard, and you know they've got everything hanging from everywhere, and suction cups holding like 5 different phones and things. No, I just like to keep it really simple. Thank you for watching the interior of my cab. If there's anything else you think I've missed out, or maybe there's something you like to have in your cab, or maybe there's something that I should be having in my cab, please do leave a comment down below. And best of all, if you could subscribe, that would be fantastic. Thanks once again, and I shall see you all again soon. Bye bye.